Leigh Broxham, welcome to Strive 365.
Thanks for having me.
Talk about been there, seen there, done that, got the t-shirt. 461 appearances over 19 seasons for one club. Sounds a little bit like a pub quiz question. Who are the one club legends that you can think of? For me, Francesco Totti, Jamie Carragher, Carlos Puyol, Ryan Giggs, Leigh Broxham. They're my top five. How about yours?
Not quite the same category, I'd say, Gareth, but it's I guess similar attitudes towards football, and it's something looking back now that I'm proud of, and it's just kind of turned out that way, and I've loved every minute of it.
Do you have a favourite moment from your time at Melbourne Victory?
There'd be a few, I think. Making my debut was, a young kid, exciting, and playing in a grand final, the 6-0 grand final, 3 or 4 games later, that was pretty huge for me at that time. And still come back to my 2015 A-League final goal right at the end. 3-0 at home, final at Amy Park, place was rocking, and I didn't score too many goals. So for me, that was, I felt pretty invincible for the next 24 hours and beyond.
Yeah, I bet. 19 seasons. So the club is sort of on the doorstep now of season number 20 in the A-League as well, the A-League season number 20.
Yeah.
This will be the first time in 20 years you haven't done a pre-season. How does that feel?
I was walking past the training session actually yesterday. And they're doing 4-minute runs in the afternoon. So watching that, I was genuinely did not miss it at that point. It looked, sort of sparked a few memories of pre-seasons, and they're long in Australia. You do 4-month pre-season, and you start off pretty fast because you've got to prepare for a cup game in 3 weeks' time, and then if you don't win the cup game, you're sort of in limbo for the next 10 weeks. So it's mixed. Kind of watching him, I was like, well, you miss being out there, miss being in the group, and being a part of Melbourne Victory for sure. And then on the flip side, the work it takes and how hard it is, and you sort of brings back the memories of how you come to the conclusion that that's it. So mixed feelings, but I'm happy with the one that I've made now.
So you've retired from professional football, right? Your kind of first career, I suppose, but you never really retire from life, obviously, and you haven't retired from football either. So maybe just fill in those who aren't aware of what you're currently up to.
Yep.
What are you currently doing?
So taking a role in sports marketing at Adidas since I've left Melbourne Victory now. I'll still be linked to the club, doing some stuff on game day and things like that, of course. Been working away over the last sort of 12, 18 months, doing my own football academy. It seems like everyone's doing one, but it was kind of just birthed out of, coaching my kids, and sort of spawned from there on trying to offer more people, the expertise and my learnings over all the years. That's kind of just how that started, and that's kind of something I just that's mine, my own, and my sort of way I think about things, and offer that to other people. So it's that's something that I'm sort of passionate about, and something that I do in my spare time whenever I get any. And I've laced up the boots for the mighty St. Albans for 6 weeks as well. So it's a busy time in the Broxham household at the minute.
Yeah, I bet. 4 wins out of 4 from what I'm hearing as well.
Who's counting?
Hey, we'll talk about your kids. We'll talk about Broxham Football Academy later on in the show.
Mm-hmm.
I want to start and spend probably the majority of our focus on understanding what it takes for the longevity of a professional athlete. And I can't think of anybody better than yourself, somebody who's sort of started it, as a kit man or a boot boy, worked all the way up to a club captain and club legend in the one club, in a challenging sport that is football, from injuries perspective, from talent and recruitment, and kind of learn more around that. So let's just maybe start back at the early days, sort of, season 1 of the A-League.
Mhm.
2004, I believe it was. So,
Yeah.
just walk us through, paint the picture. How old were you? How did
Yeah.
that kind of that first contract come about?
Yeah. So I guess season one, it's probably I was in a situation on what the pathway was now, say at Melbourne Victory through, their MPL boys system. Obviously it didn't exist, or we didn't have reserves or under 20s or anything like that. So, we're kind of linked with Victorian Institute of Sport. That was kind of the talented pathway for players at the time, without going into too much detail. So, Ernie Merrick had come from coaching there, and so he was aware of the young players there. So, season one would, because the squad was capped at 20 players in the A League, and that was it. There's no one else, no kids coming through. It was just 20 players, and that was it. So it was to get an A League contract, it was a real premium. It wasn't easy. And yeah, so when there was injuries and short of players, trying to do an 11v11 when you actually don't have 22 players at the club is difficult. So, there was a group of young boys coming through the VIS that would train once a week or twice a week, with the club. And yeah, that was something I did. And, you'd manage it with school and things like that, or whatever studies people were doing and work, because you still got to make ends meet. And yeah, sort of hang around long enough, and eventually, Ernie Merrick offered me a kit man job and boot cleaner, as you said. I think it was for about $1,000 a month, maybe 10 grand for the year or something, and it was probably maybe 70, 80 hours a week of work. But for me, that was just my opportunity to train with the team full time. And yeah, so what it looked like, it was like a mini apprenticeship, really. I was arrive at 7, put all the kit out for the guys, pick it up from wherever, and put it out, put the gear out, pump the balls up, all that sort of stuff, just the genuine kit man stuff. And I loved it. It was, I could be around the boys, it could be around, the likes of, the Kevin Muscats and the Archie Thompsons, and, we had no one remembers some of the foreign guys we had, I guess, like your Richie Kitspichlers. These guys was, it was just awesome for me. It was my avenue to train. I'd train, and then, I'd go spend the next 6 hours packing up and working in the office. That was just my in. And I did that for 9, 10 months. Yeah, absolute hard work. And, my days off, I'd go work with my dad or my mom or something. There was no days off. It was just making ends meet, and eventually paid off. We won the league by December, and Ernie Merrick wanted to rest some players. So, yeah, I signed a contract midway through the second year, and actually had to, yeah, it's a long story, but yeah, still folded the kit, packed my own kit, signed the contract on the Friday, and flew to Perth Friday afternoon, and played 2 days later. Yeah, so it was a bit of a sort of a whirlwind, but it was just, everyone sort of got a bit of a backstory on a bit of a hardship and making it in professional football. Mine was just kind of the timing of it with the league was, makes it just that little bit different, I think.
Yeah, that kind of internship or apprenticeship, that can apply to all athletes and coaches. I can think quite clearly of some stories I heard. Tony Reddings, who went on to become the Football Ferns national team coach in New Zealand, started by picking up cones for the then national team coach and just sort of turn up at training, and eventually, they built a rapport, and the head coach gave Tony more responsibilities, and one thing led to the next. And same with players, like nothing's stopping you from, as a younger player, say you're 15-year-old, maybe going down and observing the senior team in whatever sport you play, and just watching, and then maybe sort of being around the staff and the players, and eventually you're going to pick things up that, by doing that, you kind of learn these things other than just by staying away. So I'm a big advocate for that kind of informal, let alone formalized apprenticeship. What kind of things as a young player, learning off the Muscats and
Mm-hmm.
the Freds and all these other guys that, that were there at the beginning, that you think shaped you into the type of player or the type of person you are, or things like, the work ethic, the folding the kit, putting the gear out, that still kind of happened a little bit further down the track as well, right?
Yeah, no, I think it's, you're spot on with it. I've sort of seen, not just players, staff, ones that are willing just to put in the effort, do that internship, apprenticeship for long enough to actually stick it out to learn their craft. And, you just always see people moving on, opportunities arise if people hang around long enough. And it's the same in football. I think, I made myself available enough to train, and then, there was sort of 3 or 4 of us around, and I was the one that sort of Ernie offered me the opportunity. And yeah, like it was, you sometimes see players come in and trial and they get 1 week or maybe one session as a trial, whereas this sort of gave me an opportunity, within, it took me probably 2 or 3 months to get up to speed with the team. And then sort of after that, felt like I was competing for spots, but without taking that job and working 80 hours a week, I would have never got up to speed in that moment, So, yeah, once I was in there, I think it was, the guys, Kevin Muscat would test me every training session physically, and toughen me up to say, I wasn't the biggest guy. So it was, he would always put it on me. I know I would play against Fred. You mentioned Fred, he'd probably be good for 2 or 3 nutmegs a session. Would always play 11v11. I'll be on the second team and he'd be on the first team. And, learned really quickly, the type of caliber players that are out there, and, what sort of level I had to be in terms of football. And, yeah, I think it was just a real growth in that first year being in a professional environment. From, the era's kind of changed a little bit since then as well, sort of how harsh, it can be, and, how, you got to deliver if you're in there and playing, that, it doesn't matter how old you are or who you are, that you got to deliver when you're out there playing. So, it's kind of while you're training and when you're around playing friendlies, things like that, the team's preparing you for that. Yeah, so I think it was, seeing what some of the guys could do, what Archie could do at training was phenomenal. When I first come in, and he was at a World Cup not long after, and so it was being around great players, picking things up, and yeah, I think it kind of, the kit man sort of stuff shaped me in terms of being humble and being grateful for what I had, having to work for where I was, and that kind of held me in good stead for each and every preseason where I was out the squad, and just had to work my way into it, and that was kind of just how it was from then on in, that I just tried to outwork everybody.
So those first couple of seasons, right? So as a youngster, what were you doing away from the organized team training environment? Like, were you fully immersed with the boys in terms of the recovery and in terms of the lunches, or were you kind of in for training and then off, or other than your work that you're doing? What other components can you think back to that you were doing to help set yourself up for this long-term professional career?
Like I just said, I think I felt like, if I could outwork everybody, it was kind of, I was almost obsessed with just what can I do more than everyone else, I guess, like if it was before training, guys are doing prehab work, what more can I do than them? If it's, had access to a gym beforehand, was I in the gym longer than everyone else? And, training would finish, and whether it would be just hitting free kicks or knocking balls around, I could always be last to finish. I had to wait anyway because I had to pack everyone's stuff up. But, it was kind of, how could I be just there? And I become obsessed with it, I think. How could I be doing more than everyone else? And it wasn't just to be seen to be doing more than everyone else. It was like, I'm actually going to get better quicker than everyone else. And, it was just kind of an obsession with outworking everybody on just anything I could think of. I could just go into the gym afterwards just because, I'm like, where I'm 20 years old, like, where do I have to be? Like, what am I going to do after this? I'm in a rush to go home and, watch TV or something, you know what I mean? So it was, yeah, I just had an obsession with trying to outwork everybody. And yeah, it wasn't just to be seen to be outworking everyone and, to get in the coach's good books. It was, yeah, and that kind of changed over time as I got older and older. Like it was, you had to calm it down a little bit and look after your body in different ways, and not go over the top with things, so that kind of changed. But when I was young and coming through, and, where that window is to get exponential growth, I was just obsessed with it.
Yeah, so we see this probably not as much as I would like players sticking behind after training to do extras or working on one specific thing. It's an area that we encourage on certain days within loading and freshness and stuff like that. But I think it's something that younger players, again, of every sport can do more of. But you spoke about having sort of a deliberate focus around these sort of things, not just kicking balls for kicking balls' sake, but, would you be working on deliberately trying to, put bend on a ball or work on a certain type of delivery or working on your first touch, receiving long balls? Would you do this by yourself? Would you rope in another young player, a senior player, one of the coaching staff? Maybe just give us some insights to being really deliberate around this additional practice.
I think I kept the fun element as well. Like I love just hitting free kicks. When I was younger at the team, I was on set pieces a little bit more, and I was being asked to take free kicks as well. So I'd always hang back and practice those because I had the pressure of trying to deliver those in my early years. As simple as hitting a long ball with one of the other young boys, bringing the ball down and practicing striking the ball. Your opposite foot still wasn't great at that point. It's still weak. Most players still don't have a great opposite foot. So, as simple as that. I often do some one-on-one stuff. You kind of underestimate, you don't enjoy it. I know when I was a lot younger, you'd sort of hang back and fullback sort of training would, you're trying to just run at each other in a 1v1. And it was just so simple, the two of you with one ball. And it's not fun because it's uncomfortable defending a 1v1 situation. But something as simple as that was something that, I'd often didn't enjoy, but would, if there was a fullback wanting to work on it, would help with that as well. So, yeah, it's, not an elaborate pole here, cone there, pole, cone, just kind of, you're just out there having extra touches, or, you're in a couple of boxes each and you're testing each other's first touch, That's as simple as that was what it would be.
Would you see many of the older, more professional pros, let's put it that way, do something similar, or are they kind of more worried about protecting their body and the load and injuries?
Not really. I've had some players, older players throughout that I've played with that would, maybe attackers that would hang back and twice a week do extra shooting. I felt that just sort of helped them prepare. But yeah, the older guys would, it was probably more, they'll go inside and do the right things in terms of recovery and stuff like that instead. So
yeah, it's certainly a balance, especially the older you get. I've had the privilege of working with Emily Gilnick the last season, and as a striker, she'd grab me and maybe one of the younger strikers, and let's go grab a bag of balls and work on some shooting. And the big difference I see is the younger strikers just trying to shoot without really thinking about the type of finish. And Emily go, no, I want to work on this one specific thing. And I've got, say, 10 reps or 8 reps, and then done. And even maybe it's 7, she feels, okay, enough's enough. And then she's off the pitch. It's not like she's there until she's perfecting a specific thing. She kind of gets that balance of working on one real specific element. Could be receiving on the edge of the box and striking across the goalkeeper at the bottom left corner, 4 on that foot, and then swapping the other side of the left, and then that's me done. That's enough reps. I feel comfortable, but I'm not overdoing it as well. So trying to add in, and you can do that more so as a youngster, right? And even a 14, 15-year-old should be almost accumulate as many reps as possible, but having that deliberate focus around something quite narrow rather than just, I'm just going to go shooting, or I'm just going to work on layups in basketball. I'm going to have specific, pivot, spin, layup, right side, left side, and then have a focus and maybe measurements and how you can link in support staff and coaching staff, because as a coach, we love to see athletes doing more work on their own game. Let's fast forward a couple of seasons, right? So, Melbourne Victory wins championship in 2007 and 2009, and then obviously a couple later on, but 2007 and 2009 is sort of season 4 and sort of 8 of your tenure. You're now a regular in the first team. You did mention a little bit earlier about, new preseason, new coach, sort of drop back down the pecking order and having to sort of earn your right and your legacy back again with the change of coach. Talk us through those sort of that period of real success for the club, but also, the changes of coaches and you having to kind of start from the bottom again.
Yeah. Well, it kind of felt like it every year, and it almost, reflecting about it, it felt like it brought the best out of me. That I didn't bring any complacency. That I really had to push as hard as I could to have my body in the right way. To be mentally prepared, and to understand the way the coach wanted to play as well. I had to be adaptable. The coaches all come in with different ideas, and it was, letting the last coach ideas go and buying into the new one. That's a thing as well, right? Like, you need to understand what the coach wants to do, how they want to do it. And that's something that you might think even's better. As you get older, you start forming your own opinions too. So kind of have to buy into what the coach wants to do. And yeah, so it was difficult each year, but I felt like, proving someone wrong was a bit of a driver for me, that, I would get frustrated, I might not play, and it would be like, in the early days with Ange, Postecoglou, for example, like our first preseason friendlies, I'd train in the morning because I wasn't really even playing at the start of preseason, even in just friendly games against, Richmond or someone, I would maybe play 5 minutes or maybe not play at all. So I'd have to train in the morning, so could have been the be all and end all, but, he said at the start, give everyone an opportunity at some point. And, the ones that kind of just couldn't keep going and couldn't, just get through it, dropped away. And, he sort of gave me that. It was my last year with him, for example. And midway through the year, started playing regularly. And, he signed me on a new 3-year contract. Whereas, I can tell you probably 95% wasn't in his plans at all for that year. So that's kind of a good example I use of that it was, and yeah, bought into what he wanted to do, and, it helped my game in a big way as well. So yeah, it was just, taking one day at a time sometimes, and approaching every day with trying to get the best out of myself. And, it wasn't easy. It was a couple of years, 2008, I went to an Olympic Games and then come back and played 95 minutes for the whole season, so it's not been like absolutely cruisy. Even, that year was difficult, and I chose, like, all right, how can I get better next year? How can I get faster, stronger, fitter? And, I came back, and the next year I played 38 games in all competitions or something, so it was not always smooth sailing. Most years I was able to have a good outcome, but, still in there was some difficult years on an individual level as well.
Some difficult years, but certainly 3 years that kind of stand out in the history of the club. 2007, 2009 premiers and champions, so doubles, and then 2015 premiers, champions, and FFA Cup. So think back to those sort of 3 campaigns. Very successful years for the group and the club. What are some of the things you think contributed positively to the overall outcomes that the group kind of accumulated in those 3 seasons?
I think it was, everyone understood their jobs, their roles, responsibilities. I think, the signings at that time as well, like, brought in just some quality players. It's not always easy to get, international players right as well. Like, you kind of scouting here is limited as well. So, when you land those well with, what Melbourne Victory could bring in, went a long way. And yeah, sometimes, you do need that little bit of luck as well throughout the year, where things do just drop for you. And, once you sort of get that winning start, the camaraderie comes with the team as well, which then, winning becomes a bit of a habit. And yeah, it's kind of, it's a difficult one. Sometimes you think some pre-seasons, you're like, we're going well here. It's a great group. We'll go really, really well. But, I kind of learned over the years that, you could have a really, really great group, but, they're just great people, but that have that real desire for success. Doesn't come with it, so you could all get along really well, but, you really need some of those winners in the team that might be a bit disruptive, but you'll find a way to work together and focusing on those outcomes and achieving what you want to achieve. So, yeah, it's been it's been interesting. All the seasons have always been different, but with that similar theme of, guys just hungry for success and people willing to have those difficult conversations to make the team better.
So no doubt you, especially when you put, a group of say 20-ish hungry animals, competitors, you're going to have some larrikins and some characters and some just there to win. And, the role of the staff is to try and blend that. But think about role of the players and you're kind of moving towards more senior player status here and eventually the captain of this group.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the responsibilities, I guess, of the senior players? Think about yourself as a young player coming through, maybe now as a senior player, how can the senior players positively impact and, keep on the level, the ship, whereas the coaching staff have got so much to worry about anyway, that the players and key players have a massive part to play in the overall wellness of the group.
Yeah, I think so. I think, as a young guy coming through, just sort of still having that connection with the leaders in the team on just a simple level, if they're coming and asking, yeah, how's your weekend? Or, do you meet any girls on the weekend? Stuff like little things like that. You're just like, they took the time to have those little conversations. And, then when they were demanding something on the football pitch, you didn't take it as personally. You have to learn quickly that, yeah, things aren't personal on the football pitch. It's just people trying to win games of football and get the best for the team, which isn't easy for everybody. But that's something that in football you have to get, that it's things aren't personal, or mostly not personal. It's just people are there to do a job, and sometimes the message comes across in a tough way. Yeah, and then from a leader's point of view, it's like you got to have those difficult conversations. You got to be comfortable being uncomfortable. I think it's something that you're just like, oh, I wish someone else could, say, hey mate, you're late today, like that's unacceptable. Whereas you could easily just go, I was only 1 minute late. Who cares? You just don't have to have that difficult conversation with this guy who's just come from a World Cup and played 100 times for his national team. Pulling someone up like that, going, like having difficult conversations regularly, I think, is part of being a leader, and then knowing what the standards are at a club and driving those on, and keeping your ear to ground and things like that. It's there's still a lot more to it, and a lot of responsibility to to lead a group in the right way.
Not many leaders get the experience that you did of taking the team out as the captain against Liverpool, Steven Gerrard's Liverpool, at the MCG in front of 95,000 fans. So you've had that as an amazing, incredible experience. But I guess the question, if we could stay on the leadership bit for a little bit, why you? What do the coaches see in you to be the leader of the group at that period of time? And maybe how did you learn your leadership qualities? Where did they come from? Was it sort of learn on the job? Were there certain traits that naturally you feel that you offer a group? Maybe start with the why and then maybe the how.
Yeah, maybe it's, I've kind of sort of had leadership roles from when I was coming through all my junior years as well. I think, it's just possibly just come from, just the way I approach things, like sort of my belief system on trying to do what I think's right and just trying to follow it. Everyone's right and wrong, or morals and ethics are all different. Like that's just what it is. But, I've tried to form mine in a humble way that, I'm always just trying to get what's best for the group. And, if sometimes it came at the sacrifice of, my own, personal satisfaction or personal, you know, basically just putting the team first, I guess, was really something that I'd always tried to do, wanting to get what's best for the team. I think that sort of drove my sort of leadership qualities, like when there's something that could personally be a better situation and something easier for me individually, but it's not best for the team, you'd still try and put the team first. And I found that was really helpful in being successful, the more people you had like that, and surrounding yourself with good people, like I had a few years where I was trying to lead a team and, there wasn't too many leaders in the team and it was very difficult. You definitely can't do it all yourself. You need to be able to ask for help and have a good team around you. When you are trying to lead, I think that's important. And, yeah, it's just kind of trying to keep the standards high, and it's leading by example. You can preach all day and then do not act in the right way. It's like I said, if you're always late and then pulling other people up for being late, it's not you're not going to get any respect or anything, and you're not going to drive the standards if you can't do what you're asking as a minimum.
How much influence, I guess, is maybe the best way to think about it, does or did the head coach have to you as the captain to therefore disseminate down versus either the chairman or the director of football or the other senior players driving kind of standards and behaviors? How much did the leader of the team, being the head coach, versus all those other leaders have to kind of impact the overall group?
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess the leaders or the board of the club are trying to bring in someone who has you know the same approach that they want. That's kind of the idea that and in Australia, the head coach has sort of a lot of control over a group from there. So yeah, it is really it's kind of, you do need to have that good connection with the head coach on what they want, because you're trying to instill similar behaviors and beliefs and the way they want things done, within the change room to a point. But yeah, a lot of it's got to come. I imagine, never done it myself, but you hear a lot, and I've seen it myself, that it's you know, being a head coach is lonely. You need to be able to no matter what's going on in your own life, that you got to come in each and every day, and you know a playing group picks up if you drop the ball 10%. That you have to be on it every day, and you have to deliver every day as a coach. So it was kind of, as a leader in there, you're always passing on those messages and continuing on, and what the head coach, you'd kind of be aligned with how they would want things done as well.
You mentioned a few head coaches, Ange, Postecoglou, currently at Tottenham. You got Kevin Muscat doing really well at Shanghai Port in China. You won a trophy under Tony Popovich. We obviously spoke with Ernie in the early days as well. What are, I guess they're all probably different, but what are some of the things that ties the better coaches that you've worked under together, or actually are they all very different and have different strengths that you've kind of can take a little bit of from each? Maybe just speak around the coaching piece around those four in particular,
Yeah.
that coaches listening to now can kind of go, oh, that's interesting, and maybe I'm strong in this area myself. That's a good role model for me to maybe go away and think about a little bit more. How do those key successful coaches make an impact on the club, but you as a player?
Yeah, I think I reflect on it a little bit after, once finished now, and I think it's they all have similar traits in that they sort of just really believe in what they believe, right? Like it's and you instill that through a group. If you're constantly changing your message, or constantly doubting yourself, or can see the doubt on a coach, like it just goes right through the group very quickly. So when I first started with Ernie Merrick, some of his philosophies and the style of play he wanted to play was a little bit ahead of his time, I suppose, and that kind of really brought out the best in me at the time. And he really stuck to that, and he was determined that that's the type of players he was going to have, and that's how he got his success. Just sticking to the way he wanted to do things, and just kept practicing it, and people got it. And similar for Ange, he wanted to play a similar way. He wanted to play his way, and it was, if you can't do it, I'll find someone who will. It's not like you can't do it, so we need to change. It was, and it would teach the simple things, stuff that you'd still teach in skill acquisition, that no longer gets taught as people get older. When he still breaks down simple things to, move the ball with your first touch, and it would still help a 25-year-old get better each week. And yeah, you knew your roles and responsibilities clearly, and where you could express yourself as well. And similar with Kevin, like his attention to detail, and the way he wanted to play, and his belief in the way he wanted to play, I think never wavered. And it was similar with someone like Marco Kurtz as well. I think given a little bit more time, things would have turned for him. I think he was a little bit unlucky with everything that was going on. So, it's they've all kind of find the right people to play the way they want to play, and they believe in what they're doing, and still don't try and overcomplicate things too much.
You mentioned Marco Kurz. That was around the time that I arrived at the club in 2019, just after he'd won the championship with Kevin, who then moved on. You had Marco, then COVID happened. You had Carlos Brebner and Steve Keane, and that kind of the list kind of went on for a number of years, and there were some lean years there, and obviously COVID was a challenge around that performances, and the group sort of had some harder years around the performances, and then ultimately the crowd sort of spoke a little bit around that, and haven't necessarily come back, talking now in 2024, to the levels that they were in, say, 2017. What if you could help the league and speak to the decision makers around the A-League men and the APL, what are some of the things that you think as a player or an ex-player now that has kind of seen that whole 20-year cycle? Where does football sit in the ecosystem of Australia? What are some things that you would like to see now as a fan happen, based on, obviously society has changed, but there's some things that we can learn from the past, adapt for the future. What would you like to see happen, or do you think could happen that would have a real positive impact on our game in this country?
Well, that's a big question, Gareth. I mean, there's no doubt the whole COVID period was very difficult for everybody, and in the build up to that, I think we were we just dropped the ball a little bit with planning and things like that. Coming out of COVID was very difficult, and it was difficult for Grant as well. I guess it's hard to judge people through that period as well. So eventually come out of it, I suppose, and it's the game's at an interesting time at the moment in terms of what commercial deals have been done and things like that, and the finance of the game, and I think the game did used to be a little bit more open as well. I think now with better sort of tactical coaches trying to get the best, and each team trying to be fitter and fitter each year to try and get the best out of a salary cap environment. Teams are defending better, and it's sort of sometimes the games can be a bit more defensively based. So that sort of impacts it too. Finding the right stadium fit for teams as well. It's kind of no coincidence that, say, clubs like Adelaide always seem to have a great atmosphere with their boutique stadium. It's easier said than done just to build 12 perfect stadiums for everybody. I get that, but that has a bit of an impact, and I know they've been trying to change that as well. It's we kind of keep making changes, but making similar errors along the way. And if I had the answer, I'd probably be working in a different job, I think. But it's COVID taught us one thing. I think it's about the fans and the spectators and the engagement and what they bring, and it's probably ensuring that you keep engaging those, and you keep capturing the next generation with exciting players in the league, and bit of work to do, right?
A lot of work to do, and there's some good people working hard. You mentioned earlier in the conversation around heading off to the Olympics and then coming back and having a season we didn't play as much as you would have liked. So let's just walk back to the Olympics, Beijing Olympics.
Mm-hmm.
You were in a pool with Argentina, with a certain Messi, Di Maria, and Aguero, and they went on to win the Olympic gold. And obviously the success that Argentina have had at senior level sort of since in Messi's career, all of those guys' career. What was it like to play against those guys up close and personal on a big stage?
I didn't play a minute at the Olympics, but I was there. No, it was I can still remember it clearly though. It was a unique experience. I think it was something that I'll always sort of remember, and I think you knew these players were good players at the time, and sort of a few years later, you look back and you're like, wow, these guys were, there's players playing at Real Madrid that, some people have probably never heard of now, but, they were like staple names at huge clubs at the time, other than the ones you've just mentioned as well. So, the Olympic Games was sort of a special experience as a whole. And then, being a part of it, playing against teams like those and, sharing hotels and stuff with players like that, it was pretty cool. It was, something I'll definitely remember for a long time. And, those sort of tournaments and things like that are, what you grow up dreaming of doing. So it was pretty awesome.
You went to a under-17 World Cup in Peru, and you had a cap with the Socceroos. So
yeah,
let's just reflect back on your time with, wearing the green and gold. How special was that Socceroos moment? One cap versus 461 caps at Victory. There's a small imbalance there. So
yeah.
have you thought about now things that you could have done different, or was it just timing or unfortunate or coach or players in your position?
I think it was a bit of timing. I think it was, in the build up to, well, I mean, firstly, I suppose my under-17 campaign was amazing. I was at school, and 15 the process started, 16, 17 you go and probably played in the build up 20 different games for the under-17 national team. So that was just amazing experience. Like my year 12 struggled that year, but it was something I wouldn't change. And like in the process to the Beijing Olympics, there was a lot of, we had to play 14 qualifier games. And I think I played 12 of the qualifiers to get to the Olympics. It was a very, very difficult process. And they were sort of bringing through a lot of the Olympic players at the time, giving them exposure to the national team. And I think there's a bit of timing, and that's kind of football. I think if you speak to everybody and anyone, sometimes you hear someone gets a really bizarre, amazing transfer who maybe hasn't done much, and sometimes it's just timing and someone who likes you. That's just football sometimes. And it was similar with Pim Verbeek, who was coach of the national team at the time. He just kind of really liked me and was just bringing me into a few camps. I was in another few camps at the time. And and then sort of in between, when I was sort of coming into camps regularly, practice game with Melbourne Victory, injured my ankle, and kind of that finished my season at the end of that year. I had to have ankle surgery, and I was out for sort of 3 or 4 months. Not long after Pim Verbeek moved on from the job and didn't play a game again. New coach, long-term injury, and sort of getting back into football, and didn't really get a sniff again. The under-23s had finished. There was no more national team exposure, and it was just the timing of it, and that's kind of how football goes sometimes.
Yeah, it's how high performance sport goes. So change of coach, change of philosophy, change of formation, change of budgets, all these things that are not in an athlete's control can impact positively, or in this case, if your case negatively, ongoing selections. And it's not nothing to do with you. It's just the way of high performance sporting landscapes. But I think testament to yourself, you played another, 12, 13 years as a professional at the highest level possible in this country, with still dealing with that sort of setback at that time. So it's a real testament for athletes thinking back on this, where maybe they've experienced something similar, and the end of the world, it's not the end of the world. Life carries on, future opportunities, get back to work, nose down, bum up, and see what can eventuate in the future. You highlighted going back to the under-17s cycle. Year 12, you struggled at year 12. So last year of high school. So maybe let's just pause on that a little bit and think, okay, let's think back to maybe talk about what you did, and then if you had your time again, what you would do differently, or what maybe your support network could emphasize more of or less of to ensure a better balance. Again, I don't want to put words in your mouth. You're the one that said, I struggled at year 12 because of this. So obviously we'd love athletes to be successful in their sport and successful in the rest of their life, be it education, relationships, employment, whatever. How would you therefore do things differently, or emphasize or encourage people to do things in a certain way to ensure that balance is met?
Um, yeah, I mean, I suppose up until sort of year 9 and 10, I was kind of straight A student, I suppose, or near to it. Then once the demands of football sort of went up, Institute of Sport and you're 4 nights a week straight from school, not getting home till 8 o'clock. It's kind of there's just you just don't have time and energy. Like it's difficult. So probably year 11, 12, it was probably, if you knowing I was going down this path, reflecting upon it, maybe, going to parents for a little bit more support around it, a little bit more guidance on, even just the simple what subjects to choose, or, when football's going to get busy, could have done a VCE subject the year before, for example, breaking it down in terms of the actual bits and pieces of it. I think, could have got a little bit more support that I was, for being as demanding at the time. And yeah, I think, it was difficult through year 12. You're at school for what, 9 months really. And of those 9 months, I was probably not physically at school for 2 of those months in camps. So, you know, it's just difficult. You sit down, you train, they block out 2 hours where you have to sit in a room and do schoolwork, and you got a question, there's no one there to answer it. It's kind of, I just don't think there's a perfect scenario for it. I think, I'm off chasing my dream of football, and just ensuring that I was doing the best I could with school. Like I said, maybe could have prepared a little bit better in the years building up to it, knowing that, but didn't know that that was going to be the case, that I'll be selected in the team. So yeah, maybe choosing some better subjects, sort of getting a bit more support when I was home. But, at the same time, I gave it absolutely everything and completed year 12 and did okay in the end. But, um, you still did it, you still learn. And, a year later, you can be applying for anything you want to, really. So, yeah, had a handshake agreement that I'd finish school before I pursued any of my sort of football dreams. And so did that. And yeah, that's probably it.
So now as a dad to triplets, 6-year-olds,
Eight now, eight.
eight, apologies.
Mhm.
How is that now shaping your thinking towards like this ongoing duty of care, support? Firstly as a dad,
Yeah.
um, but then also thinking about your role now in terms of the Broxham Football Academy and shaping young lives through your program as well as your coaching. So yeah, what have what's sort of resonating with you now, and what have you learned, and what can you share with other support parents or guardians
Yeah.
that you think can make a real positive impact on future performance athletes?
Yeah, I think we just try and get a mix with my kids, for example, of, finding a passion for them and trying to support them through it. We've sort of both, my wife and I as well, spoken around, want to give them opportunity in what they're passionate about. My son's very passionate about football at the moment, and we make sure that his schooling stuff is on top of that stuff as well. And he absolutely loves football, so we're giving him that sort of platform at the moment for him. And yeah, just as long as he's enjoying it, keeping our ear to the ground, if he's tired, that to make sure that we're looking after his well-being, making sure he's enjoying it, having fun. When girls are a little bit different, they like football, it's keeping them engaged with it. How can they still be having fun? And yeah, just making sure that what they're doing, that they're keeping a dream alive for them. For us, it's if they turn around and they want to be a chef, that we how can we help them achieve that dream, and things like that. So it's, yeah, we're trying to approach it as holistically as possible, and not just sort of, they're still 8, they need guidance, they need advice, they need to sort of be pushed in a direction. But it's not just 100% our way, what we want to do for you. It's not, you're only 8, you're still learning, you still need guidance from your parents. And yeah, I think it's, I was started the academy sort of stuff, trying to give a little bit more of a holistic approach, and get more people what sort of been coaching my kids over the last couple of years, and trying to expose them to that, and try and offer little bits of extra bits and pieces around it that maybe you don't get elsewhere.
You would have seen a lot of parents of different walks of life, but all hopefully pretty passionate about their kids.
Mm.
You probably would have seen some over the top parents as well. Like, is there any strategies? You spoke there a little bit about bits and pieces. So, what sort of strategies is the Broxham Football Academy doing in terms of either educating parents or signage or values around, supporting athletes in a positive way versus, some of the crazy stuff that I'm sure
Yeah.
you see on the sidelines as well?
Yeah. Well, we kind of, we have your pillars of, how you want people treated, and, when parents can, we don't want to confuse kids where parents are coaching from the sideline, because it's, one message there, one message here, and it's confusing for the kids. And, I know all parents are thinking, got the welfare of their team and their players in their mind. I definitely understand that, that's what they might be thinking, but, it's kind of, we're trying to, with the teams, just keep the bottom line that we're trying to teach them as football and trying to help them as human beings along the way. So trying to go away from, result football at all costs, when you're trying to find games for them all year round, that, playing competitive tournaments is the only way. And, trying to teach that, yeah, we're at a certain point in their journey where, winning at all costs isn't what we're here for. Those results and things will come, once they start learning the fundamentals and learning team play and doing things well. I've done it enough with the teams that I've had that, when you're willing to let the kids make mistakes, willing to sort of turn your voice down a little bit and let them try and make their own decisions, and not telling them where to pass every single pass or whatever it might be, that you can, they're only going to learn by making mistakes. And sort of had it over the last few years with teams that I've coached, that it takes time at the start to get them to be confident young footballers and make their mistakes and willing to lose games in the right way. And, ultimately it sort of brings out a better style of play. And, on top of that, it's, we're trying to ensure that we're helping people grow up as humans along the way, with little bits and pieces that, the way everyone treats each other, and, the little coaching points that we try and have, that it's, trying to help them grow up in a positive way as well.
Yeah, fantastic advice. Hey, Broxy, appreciate your time. Let's move on to the rapid fire questions to close us off. Start us off by posing me and the audience a question for the week.
It is, what have you done in the last month to improve yourself?
Very nice. Give me one idea or a concept that you've been thinking about or working through that we can potentially apply to our lives.
It's quite broad. I'm not sure. Do you want to rephrase it in a way, or?
Yeah, I can do that. I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll ask the first question again, and then we'll roll into this one, and we'll just chop this whole minute section out, be easier.
All right.
Yeah, so I guess just on that one, an idea or a concept. I don't know, like, I don't know. I can not ask it if you want.
No, it's just been like something like I live by, or a quote, or is that sort of, what are you sort of going for?
I guess an idea, like, for example, I was reading a book the other day, and this guy was speaking about ants, right? Automatic negative thoughts. So the idea is to squash the ants before they become an infestation, for example. So just something that you've taken from some walk of life that you.
Okay, yeah, I get you.
All right, we'll start again.
Yep.
Provide us with one question for me and the audience to think about this week.
Okay, yep. What have you done this month to better yourself?
Awesome. Give us one concept or idea that we can think about applying in our worlds.
So one thing I try and do is focus on yourself. I think it's not trying to focus on too many opinions and things around you. and yeah, listen to what's going on, I guess, but just sort of focus on what you can control and what you can impact, and not worry about too much noise around that.
Yeah, perfect. Give us a recommendation for a book, movie, or a podcast.
Actually, one of my favorite books I've ever read is Andre Agassi's book. Yeah, sort of read it at a good time in my life, and it's one of my favorite books. I haven't read it for a little while now, but something I really enjoyed reading.
Nice. If you had a magic wand and could wave it, and one thing would change about a system or a process in your life or your sport, what would that be?
It's the magic wand for making the A-League unbelievably great. I've
If you
waited
want to,
for that.
if you want.
That's the wand.
That's the one. Make the A-League great again. What is the one thing you are striving for today?
At the moment, I want to be a good family man, away from all the sport and everything. And yeah, I think trying to be a good dad, good husband, honest, in the way I live my life. I think just making sure that true to myself and telling people how it is, black and white, not sort of living in the shadows or anything like that. Trying to be as honest and humble with people as possible, and translate that into how I try and operate in sport and in my business and things like that.
Nice one. Give us one piece of advice that you were once given that you can share with us.
I think a big one, if we're talking about sport and young kids coming through sport, would be to stay in the moment. I think by that I mean, similar to concept to what I've said before. Just kind of staying in the moment, not thinking about what if I'd scored that, what if I'd missed that, what if I didn't do this. It's sort of, it's done, dusted, learn from it and keep moving forward. So, trying to, when things go wrong or things go well, that sort of coming back to a neutral and staying in the moment as quickly as possible, without pondering on things for too long.
Yeah, brilliant. And finally, leave us with a quote for the week.
If you don't believe in yourself, who will?
Great way to finish. Broxy, it's been a pleasure. There's been so much that we've sort of dug into around this longevity as a professional athlete. Lots of experiences, positive and negative, different coaches, different ideas, different systems, but the one constant was your work ethic, grafting away every year and staying at Melbourne Victory. So as a Melbourne Victory fan, speaking on behalf of all the rest of them, thank you for your tenure. It's been a pleasure speaking, and appreciate your words of wisdom.
Thanks, Gareth. Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for sticking through to the end of this episode. It would mean the world to us if you could hit the like or share button so we can get these amazing insights out to other like-minded coaches, athletes, and parents. Cheers.